Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé. Let's see what happens.
And you want to live in a joint family. You've made that really clear. And I think that's an issue that's not going to go away.
No, the thing is that thing can be changed. Like if you don't want to live in their house, maybe somewhere else, but in the city where you can get your privacy. So we can live nearby anywhere.
Okay, so putting aside the fact that Jen and her friends just bulldozed the family by outing Rishi, and I have already talked about that to a lot of extent, and on one hand, I get their motivation, I get Jen's motivation of just like, look, let's just make this public because I need to know, and I'm not getting any indication from Rishi that this is going to be moving forward. Everything hinges on the family, right? So let's just move this forward. You would like to think that Jen would go to Rishi and say, look, I was about to just out you in front of your family. That's mean. So ultimatum time, you either bring it up with your parents while I'm there so I can witness it, or we're just going to have to call this off or something like that, instead of just going around him. But anyway, so that happened, and now the cat's out of the bag, so the family knows. And the family, to Jen's face, was saying, yeah, everything's fine for the most part. But then as soon as Jen and friends left, then the family tells Rishi, no, this will never work. You can't marry her, and you're never leaving this house because you are going to take care of us. Putting aside the cultural aspects of that and the control or the lack of choice, we can talk about the different sides of that. But anyway, so Rishi is now telling Jen, or his mission is to tell Jen that the parents are not okay with that, and with them getting married and moving into a different place. And Rishi very passively communicated that to Jen, and I think we're witnessing that communication style that Rishi does a lot and has been doing a lot to Jen, and that's why Jen previously was just so like, I don't understand. I feel like I'm going crazy because he says one thing and then I say, what's going on? Is he cheating on me? Because, it could come across that way, right? But I think Rishi is just used to being extremely passive and shady so that he can live his life. I think given the way that the family pressure on him or something makes it so that the only way he can even get kind of a happy life out of his life is to be shady and to be very passive and cut a lot of corners in communication. We saw this with Summit as well. So I think it's possible that this style of raising children, especially adult children, really will form that habit, because he doesn't have to do that with Jen. He could be more straightforward with her, but he isn't, because I think he has that habit. I don't know. It's hard to tell, but he's being very passive, and it's, I'll say it's annoying to me, I guess, because I have maybe some mild trauma around passive communication in my personal life. I don't like it when people are not straightforward, or at least eventually straightforward. When you eventually learn the truth, you're just like, so you were trying to tell me this then? That was not what you were communicating. And that no reasonable person would have concluded the truth based on what you were saying. You weren't saying it. Like, give me a chance here, that kind of thing. So I'm annoyed with it because of that. And so Jen is now, I think, reading between the lines effectively and saying, oh, okay. I think Jen's like, I get it. You're not going to move out of the house. That's just never going to. I don't think Jen knows. Clearly, Jen doesn't know that the parents are like, you're not marrying her. That's off the table. So Rishi isn't being upfront about that. Now, it's possible that Rishi knows that the family would eventually adjust if he did get married, that they wouldn't disown him. But the one thing they would really disown him about is if he moves out and stops taking care of him. But anyway, so he, in his way, is trying to find a compromise. And I think given the pressures on him and given, I think, his own preferences, and, is it his preference to stay with the family, or does he feel just dominated and controlled, or who knows? But it's possible that he, literally wants to stay living with the family. So for him, he's trying to find a compromise of saying, okay, let's get married, but you live in a separate place and I still live with my family. He's being kind of shady with the language. He's like, we will live nearby, but that's not I think what he's proposing, and this is kind of like a summit strategy, if you will, this let's just figure out anything I can say right now that will placate to keep us moving forward, even though it doesn't make any sense. And even if we did enact it, it wouldn't work because it's fundamentally flawed, because the parents don't want him to get married. And I think not only does he feel the cultural and the family pressure to stay with the parents, but I think he feels the cultural and family pressure to not get married to someone that the family doesn't approve of. So I think I think marriage with her is just off the table. So the only option is sort of like that first 10 years with Jenny, where for this Jen, and for Summit and Jenny, for Jen, she would just be this girlfriend who would visit now and then, and they would get to have time together, but not the kind of life that Jen wants. She wants to have him. She wants to live with him and have it be public and do all the things. So yeah, which maybe Jen will adjust to. Maybe Jen will say, "Oh, okay, well, it's not the end of the world." But I don't think Jen wants that. But I could see that working. Jen and Rishi seem to have something going on there, and maybe that's the price you pay when you start dating someone from another culture and you don't understand the possibilities there. So maybe that's the best answer. Or should Jen just break up and date someone and investigate the culture or the situation prior to falling in love with the person? I don't know. What do you think?
I think that his family will ever budge on letting him leave the family home. But I do really hope that Rishi could make it work so that we can stay together, because I do love him and I do want to marry him.
We can live nearby anywhere. So that is not a big issue, basically.
Okay.
Ish. So he's saying, sure, we'll get married. We'll live nearby by ourselves without my family. And yikes, I don't think that's the truth. But it's possible he believes it in the moment, but greater possibility he knows that's not true. And he is just saying whatever he can say to trick her, literally trick her into staying in a relationship with him. I think that's what's happening, because he knows. And he has known is the thing, because we as an audience only saw the family come forward with, "You're never marrying her," or someone like her of her age, and "You're always going to be living with us." We didn't really know that. We imagined that might be true, but we didn't really know that. At least I didn't. But he has known it from day one. And he has been communicating with Jen for a long time. I mean, I'm looking at my notes. How long is their relationship? They've been in a relationship for 2 years or longer. So they're engaged. He proposed. So he's known the whole time. And he has been obscuring that fact the entire time. Now, the one chance that would redeem him is if he thinks or suspects that if he could work on the family more, the mom and the uncle, if he could have more time to kind of work on them, that eventually they'll kind of warm up to it or something. So in his mind, he's like, well, I know they say that, but there's some wiggle room there. But I don't think there is, honestly. And I don't think he has the kind of relationship or even the personality to work on the parents or the family that way, because he's so passive and so accommodating.
But the thing.
But to be clear, it's not really accommodating when you passively agree or oblige or succumb to someone else. That's not actually accommodating someone else. You are giving in, but you're not actually wanting to do it, and it will lead to problems like this.
The big thing is when they ask about your age, so. And when I told them, they were like a totally like opposite.
Okay, good. That's direct. That's good. Now, I'm going to take a guess and say that he'll backpedal and smooth this over, but good for him that he's saying this directly.
And they
What does totally opposite mean?
They just said.
Did they say no? We don't.
See, Jen is learning. I have to clarify. I have to ask a lot of questions to get him to tell me what really is happening. So she's learning, and that's good. That's what I would do if I were in his shoes. It's like, okay, what do you mean by this? Tell me more. Give me more information.
Approve. They said, no, we don't approve.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. And Jen, you're dealing with another culture, another situation. I know in India there's a lot of different cultures, a lot of different ideas that pertain to this matter. So it's not like all of India has this notion, and things are changing over time and by region and whatnot. But, it's a pretty common notion in any culture. But the more traditional cultures, the more cultures that are like India, the more like. So you just think Jen would look into that. Yeah. There should be on Instagram, because so many of these people meet each other on Instagram. So there should be a thing like maybe an AI algorithm that detects flirtation between people of different cultures, particularly white Americans, maybe, I don't know. And there's a pop-up or something, or a test that you have to take before you can proceed to flirt with the individual. It's like, do you understand the cultural differences? Maybe the AI would even give the cultural differences. Like, there's a chance, and well, this is interesting, actually, that, because all the talk of AI, and I've been using it more and more myself, just recreationally, and also somewhat, sometimes I'll be like, write me an email along these lines, and I'll be like, oh, okay, that's a good idea, and then I'll edit it or something. So, that's now, it's going to be much more into the future. And so there's been a lot of talk about that, but I haven't heard anyone talking about how AI could help you with dating. The AI could analyze a bunch of things about you, your social media, maybe even you answer some questions or something, use machine learning. That's interesting. I wonder, I'm sure it's being worked on, because I've talked about before how over the decades, there's been a lot of research and claims made by charlatans that they can match make, right? They know how to find when two people that will work well together in a relationship to get married. Shows like, what's the show I watched? The reality TV show, Married at First Sight. Other websites like eHarmony and other kinds of places will claim that they have some secret science that if you answer a bunch of questions, and they'll be able to, with a greater likelihood, match people up based on compatibility. And the long and the short of it is that I've looked at all of or not all of the research, but much of the research, and the conclusion by the experts and by myself is that we just don't have that ability. There's too many variables. It'd be like trying to predict the exact weather of a day a year from now, or even just a week from now. There's too many factors. There are too many things that are unmeasurable, or too many measurable factors to even calculate the likelihood of something happening. So what we use is machine learning and AI to figure out an algorithm that's based on the data that is better at predicting the future than ourselves. So presumably in the future, there will be that availability. And I wonder what implications that would have on society, right? That a computer would actually match you up. But if you're looking for compatibility, right? Another way of doing this would be that you could use AI to analyze public information about someone else. Presumably, especially in the future, most people will have a lot of stuff that'll be on the internet that don't indicate overt things about their personality, but using AI, there would be this ability to detect things like, oh, that person, given their social media presence, there's a higher likelihood that that person is a racist, for example, or that they have this attachment style, that kind of thing. You just figure that would be pretty helpful, right? So with Instagram, when this AI pops up, it says, would you like us to analyze both of your Instagram profiles and other things and tell you whether or not this continued flirtation is a good idea? And you're like, yeah. And so it does it. And it says, are you going to continue? Yes. Okay. Well, there's a 90% chance that you will run into a pretty entrenched incompatibility regarding something like this or something else, would that mean that 90 Day Fiancé wouldn't exist anymore? Because, the show kind of depends on these relationships being kind of a disaster. Yeah. Okay, well, let's adjourn there. And everyone, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.